Greetings, one and all. Let me see if I can. There we go. Can I disable the waiting room? I don't know if anyone else can. Melissa, I'm not sure because I want to make sure no one's stuck in the waiting room during the meeting and during the presentation and here they were just stuck there for a while. But hello, everyone. Thank you very much for coming. Hi, Steph. Hi, Angela. Hi, Melissa, Lori, and Jennifer. Hello. Thanks for coming. It's actually pretty honored I get to kick off our autism awareness. I'm pretty excited. Plus, you get to see lots of adorable pictures of my children. Thank you all for being here. And it doesn't? Okay. Well, that's a bugger. I wonder why it's doing that. Okay, well, no, thanks for letting me know, Melissa. I'll just try to keep my eyes out just in case someone ends up in the waiting room again. So I will get us started here. Thank you very much for coming to Twin Life on the Spectrum, learning about autistic strengths and struggles with my sons. This is going to very much be a narrative journey through the past decade-ish. But I also want to connect it then to my life as an educator because it certainly changed, especially in recent years with understanding what my sons need and what other students must need because of being on the spectrum like they are. So to start things off, here are some adorable pictures. My sons were born in September of 2012. And the pregnancy itself was normal. We were both very surprised that we had twins in in utero because there aren't twins really on either side of our families. So, hearing from the gynecologist, oh, there's two in there, just kind of threw us both for a loop. But we're happy to have them. The birthing itself was an induced labor, but there were no complications, no surprises. During their first year, there really wasn't anything out of the ordinary. They both had colic, and I can tell you that's quite the slice of Hades when you have twins dealing with colic for a month. But as far as, milestones go, things were within normal range. There wasn't anything out of the ordinary. I do show a particular picture for a reason of baby Peter with a book and baby Phil with a ball, because that was very much how the two of them were from infancy. Peter was always drawn to books. He loved looking at the pictures, the words. He was always studying these things, whether it was flashcards, board books, bigger books. He was always looking at them. Whereas Phil was always on the move. He was eternally on the move, grabbing stuff, going for stuff. He was a very active one, whereas Peter was very much just on just looking at things and taking things in. When it came to sensory stuff, that started to pop up as we got closer to that preschool kind of age. And I know I mentioned potty training on the previous slide because we were trying to get it started early on, and it just ended up becoming this up and down, back and forth struggle of a saga up until they were almost 4. And I think part of that had to do with that sensory reaction, and that concept of change. Because potty training is a big change. That's huge. When they were before school and then even during 3K, Peter was reading words. He was picking up on words that even he had not, from books he had not seen before. I have them, you can see a picture of their preschool classroom, and Pete's the one in the toy bin with his bear. He still has that bear and a book. And the teacher is on the right with Philip. And during story time, if the teacher ever tried to abbreviate the story on the page, abbreviate the text, Peter would call her out on it. Peter would say she wasn't reading the words, and he would read them. Again, from books we didn't have at home. He didn't see them before. He was picking that up that quickly. Phil was very much our imaginative, hands in it kid. He's the one in the fire hat. He very much loved feeling certain kinds of things, but hated feeling other kinds of things, which ties again to the potty training stuff. The feeling of underwear, he loathed it, absolutely loathed it. Certain kinds of clothing, textures, like the whole sweatpants thing. Nope, not Phil. He can't stand that feeling. And while we just took that as, toddlers being toddlers, being picky and such, we really didn't take a whole lot of, we didn't think much of it. Granted, we thought it was strange how they would hide from change. Even if their grandma was coming over, Phil would curl up into a ball and hide, and just, you couldn't talk to him for like the first half hour of the visit, and then he would acclimate. We thought it was strange, but we didn't understand that could mean anything. But the issues with change just expounded, to make up a word, by the time they were in kindergarten. It was a new school environment, and the transitions in from home to school were always filled with a lot of drama, always a lot of tears, a lot of frustration or anger or refusal, especially with Philip, the one in the Batman outfit down there drawing R2-D2. The refusal to accept that he was now entering a new place with different people. And I'm not talking just the first day of school. I'm talking every day of school was like that. Peter also struggled a lot with this concept of having to follow that teacher schedule, of having to interact with other kids. He just wouldn't talk to them. And I cottoned that up to shyness at the time, because he simply preferred to just be on his own and talk to himself. I mean, that little kindergartner loves Star Trek ships. And what other kid in his age group in this day and age talks about Star Trek? So I just figured it had to do with a disconnect of interest. But there's struggles with change, and there's struggles with just even a change in how their day at school is going. Like they have an assembly instead of a certain class, would always cause a problem. And so their counselor brought up, well, maybe it's sensory processing disorder, just that struggle to handle different stimuli in their environment very quickly. And she recommended occupational therapy. And we thought, well, maybe this is it. Maybe it's considering the different textures, the different challenges they're meant to do. I mean, with Philip, during 4K, he was never made to actually handwrite anything until the very end when it came to assessment. They just didn't want to have that fight with him. And then here is May, and the teacher tells me that he's never done any sort of handwriting all term. And I finally, after 5 hours, and I wish I was exaggerating that, but I'm not, 5 hours of sitting there with a sheet of paper and a marker to just try writing a letter. And Phil just was so upset in the end because he knew his letter would be wobbly. It would look bad. So he didn't want to do it. And he finally tried it and he realized it looked okay. Because we were telling him, it does, it looks okay. We could tell what letters he was making. And that got him to start trying other things like drawing robots, because that was Phil's thing. Phil has always loved his robots. And I know it's probably a little hard to see on this picture. Phil is on the left. He drew a picture of himself singing with a robot band made of Wall-E and Mo from that Pixar movie Wall-E. Because Phil discovered he could create things in drawing, and that really spoke to him. And yet there were other things in school that did not. And the conflicts between him and his first grade teacher over things he saw as unfair, over, again, the requirements to have to do a certain task a certain way, not understanding the directions. And so he would throw something. Or he would hide. He would run away and hide from math because he knew he would get it wrong. He would throw away his tests because he knew everything was wrong and he failed. And the teacher would pull him out of the garbage and they were fine. But his fear was so deep that things were wrong. He would rather hide or tear things up than to find out they were wrong. Peter, in the meantime, just continued to not talk to anybody. He was seen as smart, but because he didn't really talk about what he was reading or doing, the teacher figured he's not gifted student material, essentially. And with such differences in their personalities and their traits, I never thought of ADHD. I never thought of autism. No one else brought it up there either. An IEP was established for Phil, without clear ideas about the roots of the behaviors. And I'll get back to that in a little bit. And this was during the pandemic. So a lot of this was established online. And since Pete was seen as quiet and he does the work, he's fine. And even the occupational therapist that we had been going to for I want to say it was nearly 2 years, even she felt there was nothing else she could really do. So we were just kind of stuck in another limbo. 3rd grade is the first time autism is mentioned as a possibility. And Phil's IEP worker, who was new, not the same as the 2nd grade, 1st and 2nd grade, new person in 3rd grade, he's continuing to struggle. And she proposes, in 3rd grade, the IEP worker wonders if we had considered autism, that the two of them could be on the spectrum. And while I was taken aback at first, considering how starkly different these two boys are, and that autism in one twin often means autism is in the other twin, I wasn't sure what to think of it. And yet nothing else was helping Philip. If this was what Phil needed, well, then we needed to do something. Plus, Peter's teacher now was seeing some dramatic negative changes in behavior, some struggles especially among his peers in his class. Granted, it was an extremely difficult class Pete was in, but Pete just could not understand his classmates. And his teacher was seeing that. And was worried that there was something going on with Peter that wasn't being helped either. So I finally got them in line for assessment. And because, in the Dane County area of Wisconsin, there were so many, I should rephrase that. There were few clinics that were taking in new people of their age group, of their gender. And I finally found a person who was able to assess them, but it was going to be a year-long wait. So we wait. And in the midst of that waiting, I am in constant questioning of myself as a parent and wondering, what did we not see? What did we not understand? What should have told us this sooner? And I think a lot of us can feel that way as educators too, when we're trying to help our students and trying to make sure we understand what they need from us, and trying to make sure that we're not missing cues. And yet that's hard online. In person, you'd think we could catch that, but I did not know. We don't have a history of autism in our family, at least that's known, either. We don't have any mental health experts in our family either. So these signs just, exactly, Steph. And that was the thing. It's still hard to accept as a parent, but we were trying to do what we needed to do. We were finally in line. And in spring of their 4th grade year, so March of 2023, there we go. I'm understanding time. It was the March of their 4th grade year that we finally got their assessment. And the assessor was very kind. It was 2 different days, several hours talking to me, several hours talking to each of these boys on different days. And at the end of each day, she knew without a doubt both were on the spectrum. And the fact that with Peter, it was so very clear, more so than Phil, that also took me aback a bit. I guess because with Peter, he felt he could connect more safely to like stuffed animals than people. He needed to look at them a certain way. He could not maintain the conversation. He struggled to ask of other people's feelings or reach out to other people's ideas. Whereas Phil is hyper social, but he's always eager to twist the topic to something he's interested in, but he's still much more engaged. But it also explained a lot of his anxiety. It also explained his temperament when it came to things he saw as unfair. It answered so many questions for us as parents. And yet when I brought the results of the assessments to relatives, I still remember this, telling my mother that the boys were on the spectrum. For her, it made sense for Philip. But when she was told Peter was also autistic, she cried. Like I had said he was in an accident. Like somehow this was bad. It was okay for one to be on the spectrum, but not the other. And just to add to that confusion, in adapting Philip's IEP, I found out the initial IEP was given this basis that his behavioral problems were trauma-based, which was a little surprised to know as a parent because we had never discussed any trauma. And yet that's what they just kind of boxed that IEP under. So it was nice that the IEP was a bit more accurate now with his behavioral stuff. Yes, Steph. Yeah, that was weird. That was absolutely bizarre. And then I wanted to get an IEP for Peter. We had the official assessment report, recommendations from the assessor. Was excited to help Pete have access to help because Phil's IEP meant he was getting access to the school counselor on a regular basis, and the occupational therapy if he needed it. And I was hoping to get those same things for Pete. But they turned me down. They did not see the need for an IEP for him because he was smart and because he could speak in complete sentences. That is essentially what the speech therapist said. He doesn't need it. He's fine. So that led to me changing schools. Was that a tough decision? Yes and no. Because again, you know, as an educator, you want to make sure students are in the place that fits their needs best. And here at Purdue Global, we're all doing our darndest to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our students and listening to them to understand their needs. And at their school where they were attending, these two, it was clear that their needs were not going to be met. For Pete, regarding just understanding he was going to need that extra help. And with Phil, while he had an IEP, there was a whole bullying saga there too that doesn't relate to our talk here. That's why I'm not going on to that. But that was the big reason we were changing schools for him. It was important to find places where they were both going to be supported and safe. So we found 2 schools. Now, I know that probably sounds a little weird, like why on earth wouldn't we have these 2 at least just one new school? Well, the reason being partly is faith-based. We wanted to be able to utilize faith in their education as well as support, as well as academics. And a lot of faith-based schools are going to be smaller. So having these 2 in the same class just didn't seem like the best of ideas, because while these 2 can get along beautifully, they also can fight like bear cubs if one of them breathes funny. And we just wanted to make sure they were each going to get the individual attention they needed and develop their own identities as well. And I'll touch on that again in a minute. So we found a school we knew would have a lot of extra support for Philip. And it's been wonderful because they are able to connect with him and help his faith and use faith to help bring some more understanding to why we behave as we do, but also to help him develop those coping and supporting strategies when there's that struggle to understand authority, when there's that struggle to understand change, when there's that struggle to understand other kids. So the counseling has been wonderful. The occupational therapy has been wonderful. And there's a special ed teacher that also handles his math. So the class that scared him the most is where he's getting a lot of extra support. And so Philip has been doing wonderfully. We keep fighting for Pete. He has been doing better. He's been able to find some kids he can connect with because he has discovered a love for Nintendo. So that's something that a few more kids are into than Star Trek. So we have encouraged the Nintendo love for him. So he's able to talk about that with other kids. While his teachers don't always understand the needs of an autistic student, the communication channel has been a lot better. And so we're working on a new assessment because he's in a new district. So to have a new assessment for a new IEP to see if we can start that extra support for him in his new school. That's what we're hoping for. I mean, and yes, there are new challenges too, because you're getting used to new kids and new rules. And new challenges that you are expected to take on. But the plus side is knowing that these were things all kids their age were going to have to deal with, and that we're in places we know we are able to connect pretty quickly with the teachers and not feel like they're hiding incidences from the bullies, dealing with the bullies, or dealing with other kids that are causing them to share just language that shows they don't understand, that fear, that lashing out. Just for an example, that made us want to change schools. I mean, he was mocked for not understanding the rules of football, and he felt like he needed to throw himself off the school roof. He felt like he was supposed to die because he didn't understand the rules of football. That kind of reaction shouldn't happen. And when classmates are encouraging that, and teachers are just kind of letting it slide, yeah, it's time to change schools. So we are in these new places and continuing our fight. And granted, it's a little hard, especially when relatives don't really see the boys as separate individuals. They just kind of treat them as a unit. And they are very, very different kids. Yes, they look alike, but they are very different kids. And so they're not really preparing themselves or preparing their words for the best way to address Phil about something, or the best way to address Pete. They just kind of go at them the same way. And that's always going to lead to mixed results, because what works for Pete does not work for Phil, and vice versa. We have had friends of ours, hearing about the boys' assessment, tell us point blank, why are you making such a big deal about this? You know, you really shouldn't make a deal about it. They're going to have to grow up and just deal with life anyway. Life isn't going to adapt for them. So they're just going to have to deal with it. And I don't understand how you can have that mindset. And yet, I am sure a lot of that has to do with just the lack of understanding of what it means to be autistic and what that does to one's perception of the world and how one perceives others. And because these two look and act as they do, they're just not seen as those with needs. Or people, this one flustered me a bit, where a friend of mine has a daughter who does a lot of the things that Philip does. And even Philip came to me and asked, is she autistic too? And I wanted to make sure I talked to my friend before Philip did, just to make sure she wasn't blindsided by that kind of question. And to her, whether her daughter was or not, she didn't see the point of getting an assessment, because she figured it really wouldn't help her. It wouldn't change anything. And that blew my mind as well, knowing on how much support Philip has gotten and how Philip has been able to see himself. And that's Philip's drawing in the upper right-hand corner. He sees himself growing up. He sees himself becoming bigger and better at things. And I don't think that would have happened without the support Sorry, I was trying not to get emotional. So to hear another parent say that it wouldn't help, just I couldn't wrap my head around it. And granted, it does hurt to let my kids know that there are going to be certain schools that they can't attend because of the lack of support. I know my son, Philip, has heard some of his classmates talk about a different faith-based high school they want to go to. So he wanted to go there. And I said that they don't have a special ed program, dude. You're not going to be able to go there. They can't support you. And that bothered him. And while I didn't like popping that bubble for him, at the same time, I know that the best thing for him is going where the support is. And that's something I've realized we have to keep fighting for, not just as parents and caregivers, but as educators too. Just because these children, these students are really smart, that they are making great grades, they still need help. I found this reading O'Connor's article, and this quote is actually related to how few girls get assessed and diagnosed at a young age. But it felt so spot on with Peter. I had to share it because that was one of the big reasons they didn't feel the need to give him an IEP. Well, he's doing good in school. What's he need one for? That's why any thought about autism went by until he was nearly 10 years old. Because he does his homework. What's the problem? We have to see past that, some of those basic markers. We have to be looking for other things. And so that's why, as an educator, I am trying to dive more into research relating to the needs of neurodivergent students to better understand what is it they need from us? What is it we can be giving them, especially in this online environment? So I'm trying to do more. I was helping out in the DEI Futures Thinking group for a while. I just wrapped up a project with them there. I'm still collaborating with the DEI subcommittee of writing across the curriculum, just to think about different ways we can help educators make their classrooms as inclusive as possible. And as an educator myself, trying to make sure that I am double checking how I teach. Am I always writing down my spoken directions? Because only sharing spoken directions, no, that's not going to stick. That's not going to stick for nothing. Am I using plain English? Because if I'm getting into the jargon, that's not going to work. Making sure I have consistent visual cues, that I have a visual that's always connected to assignment directions, a visual always connected to the discussion boards, just having those consistent cues so students get used to, oh, that's this kind of task. And having clear checklists that break things down step by step. I even started doing videos showing how to do certain tasks step by step. Through the whole thing, not yet, but I've done videos that always show how to get started. And then I'm constantly inviting folks to do one-on-one chats with me if we need that more unique breakdown of a concept or a task they need to do. I want to make sure that all students know they are welcome to share that question, share that need with me. Because in the end, a lot of these things not only help our neurodivergent students, they not only help out our autistic students in particular, but they're making the world a more abled world, as O'Connor put it. Because this quote from her really stuck with me too. So often the strategies we use to help our neurodivergent students are strategies that would help make the classroom more accessible for everybody. Why don't we work at making our classrooms more abled? Why not work at utilizing these strategies to make everyone feel seen? Because especially when it comes to the invisible disability, the twin boys that look like they're fine, they look like they know what they're doing, they look normal. That we make sure we are doing what it takes to help them realize that they are wonderful as they are. And they have skills to achieve great things. So many of our students do. But there are always going to be some barriers. And we as educators doing our best to connect with our students and understand them, we can help make a difference with overcoming those barriers. Are we going to solve everything? No, but we can do our best to help them be their best. And that means asking ourselves how we as educators are ensuring our classes are always as accessible as possible for everyone. Because this way we are not only reaching and helping those who have the visible disabilities, but the invisible ones too. And that helps everyone feel like they are truly seen. That was a lot of me talking. But I am very thankful everyone could be here. I don't know if anybody had any questions or comments they wanted to share at all. But I'm just thankful I was able to share this with you and share their story with you. But I'll take a drink of something and I will give you a moment to share if you wish. Oh, thank you, Steph. I hope Cooper's having fun.
I just wanted to say thank you. That was wonderful. And Cooper actually came up behind me and pointed to the computer screen. So he must have known that. But anyway, thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks, Steph. And thank you, Cooper. Thank you, Lori. Yes, it is definitely a journey, and it's one that's going to keep going. I know one of the big things I have been asking myself ever since their assessment is, I want my sons to be able to keep going to school. What are they going to need in the future? And why should it have to wait for the future? What can I do to help students like them here and now? And that's why I do what I do. That's why I'm trying to better understand, not just for the sake of, being the mom they need me to be, but to also be the teacher our students need us to be. Thank you, Melissa. Oh, thank you, Jennifer. I'm getting myself all weepy again. But it's been a privilege to see how they grow and how they are, transforming. And oh, you're welcome, Taylor. Thank you so much. It's been definitely a day by day thing, and I still don't know. I think the biggest thing, like Steph mentioned earlier, there were no signs early on. For some kids, the signs are there early, but for ours, it wasn't. And I got to stop beating myself up for the fact that just no one was considering it then, but we know it now, and now we make sure that we're keeping this new chapter going and making sure we're fighting for what they need. Because others are just not always going to see it. Sometimes by choice, sometimes not. It's and making sure they do understand that this is a part of who they are. It's not going to go away. Because that was a fun story with another parent too. They figured you just get better from autism after a while. It just goes away like the flu. And there is still so much negative stigma about it. There's just still so little understanding about it. And the more we help others understand that this is a part of who they are, this is a part of the way they think, this is going to be a part of them forever. Let's help the world and help them connect together, because it won't happen without help. It's up to us to help make that connection happen. So I could just kind of keep rambling, but I'm sure others have lots they would like to keep exploring. I know there's another presentation later today. I wanted to make sure I'm sharing the right person. Because Lori, I believe there was another one this evening, correct? Yes, Sean Stickney at 7 p.m. Eastern is presenting on autism challenges and opportunities in education. And I know there's another presentation tomorrow by Barbara Green on talking about how unexpected balance and wisdom, how autism redefined my core. Christine O'Neill is presenting on Friday the 12th on addressing autistic myths and increasing acceptance. And Christian Hampson, oh, there's so many. I really hope everyone can keep attending these. I know I'm excited too. And again, it was an honor to kick this off. And I can't wait to see how others are sharing their perspectives and experiences and ways we can keep helping our students here and now as well. So Lori, Melissa, I don't know if there's anything else you needed me to do. Otherwise, I am just happy to wrap things up here. However you want me to do this.
That's fine. Thank you, Sarah, for volunteering to give this presentation. It was most enjoyable, and for kicking off our 2 weeks of incredible presentations. So we really appreciate you doing that for us.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. And again, just thank you all so much for being here. It was a pleasure. And again, I hope to see you all at the upcoming presentations too over the next couple of weeks. So thank you all again. And yeah, hopefully see you soon. Bye, everybody.
Let's have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.